Picture this: Sioux kids hurling mud balls in mock battles, dodging stings from wild bee enemies, all while famine looms in spring. They laugh through the peril, but it's no child's play. It's rehearsal for real wars against invaders. In a land where blizzards bury families alive, these games weren't fun. They were the difference between legacy and oblivion. A Dakota child's entry into the world kicked off with rituals that wasted no time signaling the harsh realities ahead. When a boy was born, his older brothers had to immerse themselves in cold water or roll in snow during winter, a forced display of bravery to welcome the new warrior to the camp. If the siblings were too young, water got poured over them instead. For a girl, her sisters faced the same watery ordeal. This wasn't some quaint family tradition. It was the community's way of embedding courage from day one, turning birth into a boot camp initiation where even the infants indirectly learned that life demanded toughness. The logic held that a new fighter had arrived, and everyone else needed to prove they could handle the cold, the pain, and the unexpected, much like scrolling through today's endless news feeds of disasters, except here, ignoring it could mean the end of the tribe. The cradleboard became the child's first home, a portable wooden plank about 2.5 feet long and 1.5 feet wide, crafted from oak. A richly embroidered bag attached to one side, open at the front and secured with deer hide straps. A wooden bow arched over the infant's head for protection if the cradle fell, and dangling from it were odd toys like carved bone strings and deer hoof rattles that jingled with every tiny movement. This setup kept the baby secure while allowing the family to move freely, a clever design that predated modern baby carriers by centuries. Infants spent most of their early months living, playing, and sleeping in these cradles, which could lean against a lodge pole, hang from a tree branch while grandmother gathered wood, or balance on a horse's back carried by another child in a similar setup. It was efficiency born of necessity, where mobility wasn't a luxury but a survival tool in a nomadic life that could shift camps overnight to evade enemies or follow game. Grandmothers handled much of the caregiving, sewing tiny deerskin clothes and moccasins with meticulous care. Often stepping in fully if the mother had passed away, people whispered that the child received no less attention than if the mother lived, a testament to the communal bonds that glued the tribe together. These elders sang lullabies laced with warnings about foes like the Chippewa, embedding vigilance into the rhythm of sleep. They taught recognition of bird calls, the robin's mating song or the jay's serenade to its mate, but also the ominous hoot of the owl, Hinakaga, which might signal an Ojibwe scout lurking nearby. This education sharpened senses from infancy, turning the natural world into a classroom where a single sound could mean the difference between peace and ambush, not unlike how urban kids today learn to spot phishing emails in a digital wilderness full of threats. Discipline started early, with children trained to stay silent and observant, qualities essential for hunters and warriors who couldn't afford noisy distractions. Dakota kids rarely cried at night, a habit drilled in because their lives teemed with dangers where a whale could attract predators or rivals. Rising at dawn became routine, syncing with the birds, since hunters caught the best prey at first light and enemy raids often hit then too. In winter, infants bundled in fur-lined bags for travel, while summer brought dog travois, poles lashed to animals dragging loads including children. These could turn risky, with dogs sometimes bolting into streams, but the tribe adapted, using bullboats made from buffalo hides for river crossings, pulled by women, men, or ponies. It was a system that balanced ingenuity with peril, where every journey reminded them that comfort was fleeting in a world that didn't pause for the vulnerable. As Dakota children grew, their world expanded into a relentless forge for survival skills, where senses got honed to razor sharpness in the wilderness. They learned to maximize sight, smell, hearing, touch, and taste, detecting subtle shifts like the scent of approaching game or the faint rustle of an intruder. Memory sharpened too, vital for recalling trails, enemy patterns, or seasonal resources in a landscape without maps or apps. Boys enjoyed relative freedom in childhood, with minimal chores beyond practicing basic hunting and warfare techniques, leaving plenty of time for unstructured exploration. This liberty wasn't laziness, it was strategic, allowing them to absorb the environment organically, much like how modern startups encourage free thinking to innovate. Except here, innovation meant staying alive another season. Silence and discretion became core traits, molded into the character as foundations for patience and self-control. A hunter who chatted away scared off prey, and a warrior who boasted gave away positions, so kids internalized quietude early. Despite the constant hazards, from wild animals to rival tribes, they dove into sports with full enthusiasm, their games mirroring adult realities rather than escapist fun. These activities weren't optional recreations, They were rehearsals for the inevitable, building bodies and minds resilient enough to face blizzards that buried families under snowdrifts or famines that tested endurance. In such a life, enjoyment coexisted with danger, a duality that made every laugh a small victory against the odds, akin to binge-watching thrillers today while knowing real threats lurk outside the screen. The wilderness demanded adaptability, where children navigated a life full of contradictions, thriving in abundance one season and scraping by the next. Their education skipped formal lessons for practical immersion, learning to track, endure, and cooperate without written rules. This approach bred individuals who could improvise under pressure, traits that later confounded U.S. forces expecting predictable foes. Irony lay in how this primitive upbringing produced strategists who outmaneuvered trained armies, turning perceived weaknesses into strengths that echoed through battles like Little Bighorn. Kids played hard because they lived harder. Their mock wars with mud balls or beehives preparing them for actual conflicts where hesitation meant defeat. A timeless lesson in how play shapes destiny in unforgiving terrains. Dakota life pulsed with the seasons, a rhythm that demanded constant adaptation and communal effort to turn scarcity into sustenance. Sugar making kicked off in March as snow melted, drawing elders, women, and children to camps while men hunted spring furs. Tools included traded iron kettles for boiling, birch bark troughs for collecting sap, and wooden spiles tapped into maples. Women tested trees with axes, watching sap drip into vessels, a process that ramped up as flows grew heavy. They produced sugar from maples mainly, but also birch and ash for darker, bitter varieties used medicinally, or rare box elder for fine white crystals. Boiling happened over long fires, with boys assigned to stir pots, maintain flames, and test syrup thickness on snow using paddles. The end product got molded into cakes shaped like ducks or reeds in birch molds, or ground and packed in rawhide for storage. This treat reserved for feasts, mixed with wild rice or dried meat, but threats loomed. Rabbits and squirrels tipping troughs, prompting kids to chase them off with bows. Worse, rumors of enemy raids on sugar camps stirred unease, a reminder that even this sweet labor carried the sting of potential violence, like modern supply chains disrupted by unseen saboteurs. Women shouldered daily burdens like fetching firewood from forests and water in bladders from animal organs, handling most camp labor since men spent days hunting. This division kept the tribe functional, a system where everyone contributed without complaint, efficiency honed by necessity rather than choice. Yet, nature threw curveballs. Blizzards forcing families to hunker under snowdrifts in sheltered spots, wrapped in buffalo robes for warmth. Spring brought the cruelest hunger, when stores ran low and game scarce, adults fasting to feed children who handled deprivation poorly. Dakota people outlasted famines better than others, never resorting to cannibalism even in desperation, unlike some white explorers' tales. Their patience and bonds shone here, tighter than in settled societies, where sharing meant survival, not charity. Health stayed robust overall, with fewer diseases ravaging them than compared to later eras, though nomadic wandering delivered thrills alongside hardships, a life of highs from bountiful hunts and lows from empty bellies. When plenty arrived, they savored it fully, often forgetting past winter's bites, a human trait that left them underprepared, much like today's impulse buys ignoring tomorrow's bills. Dakota games blurred lines between fun and training, every mock skirmish or race building the reflexes needed for real hunts and battles. Mudball fights involved clay lumps on willow whips, hurled in lively barrages that sparked courage without real harm, a healthy outlet in a world where bravery got tested daily. Wrestling drew crowds of boys, each picking foes in a free-for-all where sitting down signaled surrender. But standing meant fair game for trips, knees, or headbutts, no punches allowed. This grueling sport matched American football's intensity, exhausting participants while forging endurance, a playground version of the grapples that could decide tribal skirmishes. Archery drills split teams, launching lead arrows skyward, then chasing with volleys to land closest, practicing blind shots essential for mounted hunts on fleeting prey. Winter arrows added seasonal twists, while foot races gathered boys at lakesides, challenging each other to sprints that built speed for evasions or pursuits. Horse races followed, with swift ponies carrying riders who faced jeers for balking, a social pressure that mimed the stakes of actual raids. Swimming contests tossed in variety, older boys dunking timid ones into deep waters to force self-rescue, or setting toddlers adrift on logs for perilous floats, tough love that instilled water skills amid risks. Bee wars turned hives into enemy camps, kids painting faces, sneaking close, then charging with war whoops to smash nests, dodging stings in a chaotic scalp dance afterward. Sliding used buffalo ribs bundled or bark strips for downhill dashes at breakneck speeds, no modern sleds needed. Tops, carved heart-shaped from wood or horn, got whipped into spins for obstacle races where dozens competed, keeping them whirring through courses. Pet keeping rounded out leisure, with wild foxes, bears, wolves, raccoons, deer, buffalo calves, and birds tamed, teaching responsibility and empathy in a culture where animals were kin, not just quarry. These pursuits weren't idle. They mirrored adult duties, embedding lessons so seamlessly that play became the ultimate teacher. Like video games today, simulating careers, but with stakes that could bite back literally. In the Dakota wilds, cradleboards and mud fights sculpted survivors who faced raids at dawn and famines in spring, their games a grim rehearsal for empire clashes. History shows this resilience clashed with expansion, turning childhood lessons into legends of defiance. If raw truths unsettle you, dive deeper here. Subscribe to Histories and Native Tales, hit like, and comment your take.